Great to see you in your chair, and thank you for giving me this chance to speak so early in this Parliament. There's been a long succession of Maiden speeches across the House, from the excellent speech from the Honourable Member for Beckenham on mental health issues, through my honourable friend, the Member for Burnley, and to the most recent speech from the Honourable Member for Barrow and Furness. And may I firstly say what an honour it is to be elected to this House, to follow David Howarth, who served as an excellent MP for Cambridge for 5 years. During the election campaign, everywhere I went, people were full of praise for David and his achievements, from specific items of casework to saving Brookfields Hospital and his campaign against the closure of the Young People's Psychiatric Service. And his national work has also been acclaimed, such as his fight against the Abolition of Parliament Bill. And now that I'm here, I'm delighted to find that he is remembered clearly by many on all sides of this House, and also by many of the clerks, who appreciated his interest and expertise in procedure. David is a true scholar, a fine lawyer, and a great representative, and he'll be missed on these benches. Now, Cambridge has a long and distinguished electoral history. Since 1295, our representatives have included such notable political reformers as Oliver Cromwell, although I do not necessarily endorse his aims or his methods. And if one includes the parallel Cambridge University constituency, which operated from 1603 to 1950, the list also includes many great scientists, including Sir George Gabriel Stokes and Sir Isaac Newton. Newton was arguably the first scientist to make money, though in his case it was in his role as Master of the Mint. And I should say that in light of recent discussions, the university constituencies were elected using the single transferable vote. So there's plenty of historic precedent for using it for elections to this House. Now, Cambridge is a very distinguished city and a very special city. It became significant under the Romans as an important causeway past the swamplands of the Fens, now all coloured blue. And like Rome, it is built on 7 hills, though any of you who know it well will be hard-pressed to name them all or indeed to find them. Cambridge is a city of values, of people who think beyond the immediate. It is a liberal city, with residents who understand the value of civil liberties and human rights. It is an environmental city, keen to live sustainably and without polluting the planet. It is an international city, with residents who appreciate diversity and welcome those from other countries, and residents who have a deep interest in foreign affairs and what their country is doing in their name. And it is a city that cares about fairness and social justice. For Cambridge is not a uniformly wealthy city, although some areas are, especially around the picturesque historic centre where tourists gather. Many areas, including the division I had the honour to represent on Cambridgeshire County Council for 8 years, and the ward where I now live, are less well off. We must ensure that inequality is reduced, both in Cambridge and across the country. But Cambridge is best known as a university town, and it has 3 of them. The eponymous university, 801 years old, one should never inquire too carefully about these ages. Anglia Ruskin University, an excellent university in its own right, and financed by a certain Lord Ashcroft. It's a very good use of his money. And we have a branch of the Open University as well. And there's more to Cambridge as an education city than just these universities. We are proud to have 2 marvellous sixth form colleges, and excellent further education at Cambridge Regional College. And I hope the Right Honourable Member for South Cambridgeshire and the Honourable Member for South East Cambridgeshire will forgive me for trespassing by a few metres across our borders. And we have countless good schools, although some need rather more investment, possibly through a pupil premium, to ensure that every child can have the fair start that they deserve. And Cambridge is a city of students, especially around the central areas. As a former student there myself, and more recently as a lecturer and a director of studies, I've seen firsthand the problems that they face as a result of ever-increasing debts. I've seen how this debt changes their social interactions, and Cambridge students are more segregated than they used to be. And I've seen how it affects their career choices for the worse. And Cambridge is a city of science, of historic figures such as Newton, Darwin, Watson and Crick, and of more contemporary greats, pushing back the frontiers of knowledge at a great pace. And as one of the few scientists myself in this House, I hope to bring my expertise to bear on many of the issues facing us. Now, while I suspect that my own research field will not come up too often, I work, or rather worked, on 4-stranded DNA structures called G-quadruplexes, how these structures form within cells, how they control which genes are turned on and off, and how they can be targets for new anti-cancer drugs. I don't think that will come up, but it is an understanding of how science works that I bring to this House. I can speak on wider issues of science policy, such as the funding process for both applied and blue skies research, and on the operation of the DNA database. And I can speak on how science should affect the broader reaches of policy, such as in making decisions about low-carbon energy sources, following the ideas of my scientific colleague and now Chief Scientific Advisor at DEC, Professor David Mackay. But I also believe that science, and more specifically the scientific method, has much to contribute to more diverse fields such as home affairs and justice. For instance, a Cambridge criminologist, Professor Larry Sherman, has performed elegant trials studying how to most efficiently deploy police to minimise criminal activity, and has shown that alternatives to short-term jail, such as restorative justice, are more effective at reducing future crime, cost less, and are preferred by victims. Scientists are obviously not unique in being able to apply such approaches, but we do come with a commitment to making evidence-based policy decisions. Now, Cambridge is also a city of technology and innovation. It is an economic powerhouse for the region, with many high-tech companies forming an ever-growing cluster. Companies such as ARM, Solexa and Cambridge Display Technology are changing our lives and driving the economy. There is much still to learn about how to stimulate and nurture such clusters and such companies, and I hope that we can develop a set of policies that facilitate such growth. But economic growth is not all that we should care about. We know that economic growth can lead to environmental damage. The issue is broader than just that trade-off. We are too fixated on GDP, and we make too much of whether it's gone up or down by 0.2%. It does not measure the things that we ought to care about: education, health, well-being. If there's an oil spill off the coast, and we then clear it up more or less well, GDP has increased, but I'm not sure any of us would see this as a good outcome. And we need to focus more broadly on personal issues, such as well-being and happiness. We need to develop rigorous metrics to measure this well-being throughout society, and ensure that we bear them in mind when developing policy. And we actually know a lot already about well-being. It doesn't change much with income, above a figure of around £7,000 a year. It changes with the quality of our environment, with the number of friends and other social bonds that we have, with the activities we get involved in, with family and with community. Mr. Deputy Speaker, allow me to sum up my aims for Cambridge and for the country. I want to make Cambridge a city where people want to live and work. A city where they can afford to live and work. A city at ease with its environment. A tolerant, open city and a more equal city. And I want to expand those same aims across the country. It has been said before that decisions are made by those who show up. It is a great honour that the people of Cambridge have asked me to show up here on their behalf, and I will try to represent them to the best of my ability. Thank you.